My name is Mindy, and I'm the program coordinator for Connecticut Envirothon. Thank you for joining us again for another current issue webinar. This will be uploaded to our YouTube. And joining us today, we have the current issue chair, Sherill Baldwin, and she will be presenting on the 2022 current issue scenario, managing 1 pound gas cylinders. And just to kind of elaborate on the scenario, the oral presentation, more structured documentation of exactly what is expected from you will be coming out soon. I will be writing that up within the next few days, just so you guys have more of a structure of what to expect for your presentation. But with that, I'll pass it over to Sherill.
Thanks, Mindy. And thanks to everybody who is taking time out of this beautiful afternoon because it's so sunny. We don't have many sunny days. At least it's sunny where I am. I'm in New Haven. So thank you so much for taking time today to learn about the current scenario. I'm going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint. So I'm going to do that now. Whoops. All right. Hopefully you can you see my first slide there? Well, I'm gonna start that again. I don't think it's shared right.
Yeah, it's not sharing.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So managing 1 pound gas cylinders. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I chose this as the current topic. I know that we're all very interested in recycling. We are aware that, there are problems with trash. We're aware of problems with plastic. But I wanted to introduce the concept of producer responsibility to you because it's a complex topic, but we all need to better understand it because more and more it is a policy tool that many states, including Connecticut, are using to manage materials, not only hard to manage or hard to dispose of materials like gas cylinders, but also regular stuff as well, such as packaging. And so the more that we can all learn about this concept and this complex policy tool, the better that we can use the tool to better how we manage materials in Connecticut and elsewhere. And for any high school students that are joining us today, in addition to the advisors, they are just beginning to really teach this in colleges. And so you're ahead of the curve by beginning to understand these concepts and really begin to explore how to use this tool for a particular material, in this case, gas cylinders. So why 1 pound gas cylinders? Specifically, I want the scenario to focus on camping canisters. And I don't know if you can see my picture too, but I have one with me here. It's these 1 pound, not only Coleman, but any other brand. They're 1 pound because that's how much they weigh when they're full. And they are a hard to dispose of item in Connecticut. Residents have a hard time, municipalities, and even our facilities that process waste and recycling. This is a problem material. And so it's good to consider whether EPR can handle and solve this complex problem. With all EPR laws, the first thing we have to do is we have to better understand the product that we're dealing with. And so I just want to review some aspects of gas cylinders. I am in no way an expert in gas cylinders. I myself am analyzing and trying to learn about this product, because when we learn about a product, we could better have a better understanding of how we can manage it through whether it be recycling, EPR, or other policies. I can tell you when Connecticut passed its mattress recycling, mattress stewardship program, I learned a lot about mattresses, and that's how it works. You have to learn a lot about the product, which can be both fun and challenging. So first, let's look at pressurized gas cylinders, which is what these propane canisters are. In general, gas cylinders are used by industry. We see them in medical facilities and hospitals, universities, machine shops, and even our homes. Most commonly pressurized gas includes nitrogen, hydrogen, helium, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and propane. But of course, it includes other materials as well, such as whatever the chemical makeup is in fire extinguishers, for instance. Now, there are three major types of compressed gas: liquefied gas, non-liquefied gases, and dissolved gases. And for this purpose, we need to understand that propane is a liquefied gas. It becomes gas, that the gas becomes a liquid under pressure at normal temperatures. There's also a lot of different types of gas cylinders. They come in all shapes and sizes. You find that the high pressure cylinders tend to be taller and more narrow, and they have very thick walls. Sometimes you might be on the highway or tooling around town and you'll see a truck, and you'll see all these like tall, thin cylinders, and they're all like in this special holder. Those are, of course, gas cylinders, but they're very large ones. Low pressure cylinders tend to be more short, fat, and they have thinner walls. And in this case, low pressure cylinders includes those for propane. So 1 pound gas cylinders, specifically the camping canisters, they do use propane gas. They are not designed to be refilled. These are single-use containers. Refilling can be dangerous. There's a lot of videos online about DIY, how to do it yourself and refill them, but they are not designed to be refilled. Now, when we talked about high pressure versus low pressure canisters have thick walls and the low pressure have thinner walls. These single-use containers have even thinner walls. So they're really not designed to be refilled and used over and over again. To recycle them is a problem. You actually have to remove a valve. I don't even know how to do that, but I know you have to. And this is a challenge in terms of the safety issues in terms of removing that valve. And recycling, even scrap metal dealers won't take it until the valve has been replaced. And even when they feel empty, they may not be empty. And so that's a problem. It's a problem because they, of course, can explode. So a little bit about propane. It's the same as liquid propane, propane gas, or sometimes you might see it as LP, which stands for liquid propane. When propane is in a pressurized state, it turns into liquid. Propane gas is a liquefied gas when put under pressure, and it is stored in tanks or cylinders. It's a colorless and odorless gas. It does not contribute to greenhouse gases. And what I didn't realize is it's actually generated as a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the natural gas processing. That's where most of the propane is generated, but you can also generate it through the crude oil refinement process. And it's regulated by OSHA. And OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And while you can't see it because it might be small print, part of the regulations are overseen also by the Department of Transportation, the DOT. So the Department of Transportation oversees, of course, the handling and transportation of these cylinders because they are a hazardous material. So how can I dispose of my camping canister? I can tell you I have camped. I haven't camped in a couple of years, but I have a huge stash of these because I have a friend that no longer camps, and she gave me about 8 of them, which she said are about half empty. And so if I were to use them all, what would I do with them? And what do I do with them now if they're half full and I don't want to use them anymore? All of these are great questions. And those questions come into a lot of different programs. So Connecticut DEEP, or the Department of Energy Environmental Protection, where I work, we get a lot of calls and we got emails. So if we got an email or a call that said, how can I dispose of my camping canister? We would respond and say, you should contact your local town DPW or your Department of Public Works or your recycling coordinator, who often works in the DPW. Ask them if you have a transfer station. If you have a transfer station, they may or may not take it. Find out if they will accept it. And if not, does your town have a household hazardous waste event? Find out if the HHW or household hazardous waste event will accept your camping canister. And if all of the answers are no, 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 then that's a problem. And that is the case for some towns. So maybe the resident calls the town DPW directly. Maybe they call the DPW because I told them to. The town may say, we have a transfer station and we don't collect them. Or we don't have a transfer station. And then they may say, we have a household hazardous waste event, but we don't accept them. Maybe they do accept them. Or in some cases, they may say, we don't have household hazardous waste events. Or you just missed it, you have to wait a year. Maybe you contact the HHW folks who put those events together and they say your town is not part of the program. Or maybe your town is part of the program, but they don't accept them. Sometimes they accept them, but not all towns have access to them and they're not very frequent. So they may say, you just missed it, you're gonna have to wait a year. So this is all about access. When we are trying to get rid of something and we're trying to do the right thing, we want easy access somewhat immediately. If I have to wait till Saturday, that's okay. But if I have to wait 9 months before I can dispose of it, do you think I'm going to wait 9 months? Maybe, but maybe not. And so to ensure that we are giving residents good access to a strong program that's going to collect that material as well as recover it for recycling, we need to have easy access that is ongoing for residents. So residents are not the only ones that are having a challenge with this. Municipalities, right? They may have household hazardous waste events. They may not. Not everybody has access to one. And I'm sorry, I did a typo. They're not very frequent. And it costs a lot of money to dispose of these. It costs, in some cases, $5 a canister. And of course, it only costs $8 to buy or $9 to buy. Removing the valves. You could recycle them if you removed the valve. But most municipal transfer stations don't want to remove the valve because of OSHA issues and safety requirements for their staff. And that's because they're not always completely empty and there are challenges with that. And not all towns have a transfer station or even the staff to do it. Waste to energy facilities. Waste to energy facilities are the facilities that burn our trash. They're burning our trash, and even though they can handle burning, they can't handle explosions. Materials come in through the trash and employees try to find them before all the trash is fed into the burner, but it doesn't always work. And compaction can cause the explosion, which happens when you are pushing all the trash into the facility or feeding it into the burner. Explosions cause employees' safety, causes and delay of processing materials, and of course, repairs. So I have a little video for you. There's no sound and it's on a loop, so you're going to see it twice. So this is, I think this is 2 different videos. So here's the first one, explosion. This is the second one. And we're going to see it again because it's on a loop. So both of these explosions are at a MRF. And you can see, they weren't expecting it. And it's problematic. These happen with frequency, sadly. It also causes challenges, as you could see, at materials recovery facilities. Materials recovery facilities, or MRFs, are the facilities that process our residential recyclables. So they're just expecting bottles, cans, and newspaper, and then along comes a canister that has just a little bit of gas Somebody thought it was empty, and it doesn't matter. It's under pressure, and when it gets compacted, it will explode. It can also explode in the truck when the truck is compacting, whether it be paper, the paper in the containers, they'll compact it, and that could cause explosion and then fires in the truck. And you got to remember, if you attended the webinar about recycling, or if you're familiar with how a MRF operates, all the recyclables are put on the floor, and then they're pushed into a conveyor belt that then goes up. And the first line of defense is people, our friends and neighbors, who pick out contamination. And when there is an explosive going down the line, that is like really close connection to employees that are causing safety issues. And so it's very similar to waste energy, though the employee safety is a bit higher. In those instances, it can cause delay and, of course, costly repairs. And an area that you may not have thought about is state parks, where we all go camping. Thousands of these canisters are left in our state parks on an annual basis. Again, they're not always empty. Might be that somebody just camps once or twice a year and then just leaves it. And the Parks Department are not set up to handle hazardous materials, and definitely not explosive materials. I got another video for you. This one does not loop, and I believe it has 4 different explosive scenarios. So here you'll see the recyclables going down the line. And that's the explosion. And then you see the line stop. It has to stop. It has to understand what kind of damage is on the machinery. It has to probably remove all the materials that have been contaminated or were on fire. It may still be on fire. We just can't see it. Here's another. Luckily, those are cameras and not people taking the pictures. But if there were people there, that's definitely problematic. Again, they had to shut down the line, which costs money and time. You could see that here somebody could be standing on the platform. And there the explosion is so intense, we can't even see anything. The camera is completely clouded by smoke and debris. And then I think there's one more. And this, we're going to see the roof blow off. And apparently these are designed to blow off when there's an explosion, because they now have so many explosions. But they still have to deal with the repair, the maintenance, putting it back on, and shutting the line down. So there's no wonder that our recycling and our waste to energy facilities have to increase costs, because every time they shut down the line, it's an additional cost. So gas cylinders are a problem. And the question is could EPR work for gas cylinders? So let's review a little bit about product stewardship. So product stewardship is the act of minimizing the health, safety, environmental, and social impacts of products and its packaging. Oops, sorry. Throughout all life cycle stages, meaning the manufacturing, the use of the product, and the disposal or the end of life of the product. And it's while maximizing economic benefits. So the manufacturer producer basically has a responsibility, and by doing so, they can minimize adverse impacts like toxics, cost, but there are also other stakeholders that play a role, and that includes suppliers of materials, retailers, and us as consumers. And product stewardship can refer to either as voluntary program or required by law. And if you want to know more about this, refer to post 6. So a type of product stewardship is referred to as EPR, or extended producer responsibility. This is the mandatory type of product stewardship. and it is due when you are passing a bill or passing legislation into law. EPR at a minimum is that manufacturers take responsibility for a product and extending to post-consumer management, meaning they take responsibility for the product after we have purchased it. And it also includes the product's packaging. And there are two related features of an EPR policy. One, it shifts the financial burden and the management responsibility from being to just municipalities or local government to the manufacturer. And it provides incentives to manufacturers and corporate environmental considerations into the design. So it gives an incentive to redesign packaging and the products. So this was created by Sego Jackson in Seattle. And so I'm going to steal his, borrow his design. So we're going to start on the left hand in the bottom. And here's the producer or the manufacturer. We're going to say, let me use my tablet as an example. So I have a tablet that I bought from Bob's Tablet Company, and Bob's Tablet Company made my tablet, which I bought at a big box mart store. I bring home my tablet. I not only have my tablet, it's got the cardboard packaging, it's got a plastic sleeve around it, maybe a polystyrene wrap, and maybe it's got little twist ties around my cords, and I've got cords and maybe a headset, I don't know. It's all part of my tablet package. So I have bought this item, Bob's tablet. Well, what happens now is I also need to spend money that goes to both the local government through my taxes, as well as paying for disposal. Sometimes disposal is paid through my taxes, and sometimes it's in addition to my taxes. However, municipalities do have to pay ultimately for disposal of materials. These materials may go to recycling, maybe my cardboard box, or maybe it gets put into the ground, or of course in Connecticut, waste to energy facilities. And this is where it stops. There's no incentive for manufacturers to come up with a better product, perhaps designing it so certain metals could be extracted from it and recovered for recycling, or maybe a way to reuse the cardboard box, different ways in which to recycle different components. There's just no incentives in this design. Product stewardship changes the design. Now, this is a crude conceptual design, but generally product stewardship, some of them were changed slightly, but let's take plastic film, for example. Plastic film. Now, let's stay with the Bob's tablet. So in the case of product stewardship, Bob's tablet makes my tablet. I buy the tablet at the big box store. I bring it home with all of its packaging. And now that we have a product stewardship program, I actually have a place to bring all the cardboard and all the materials. And I also have a place to bring the tablet itself. The tablet can be brought back to the retail store, perhaps, so it can get recycled. Or maybe I have a curbside program to collect the material. And up here in the corner, we have new characters in the scenario. Here are the producers, Bob's Tablet Store, as well as all the other tablet manufacturers. And together they band together and they create something called a stewardship organization. The stewardship organization creates a program that's going to collect all the materials that are as a result of their product and their packaging. And they're going to pay for that program. So there's no cost to the municipality through their tax base. So all the producers of tablets are members of the stewardship organization, and they pay money into the stewardship organization, which pays for the development of this program, which requires recycling, best management practices. And because they have to pay for the best management practices, including recycling, they have an incentive to do better. They have an incentive to reduce toxicity in their product. They have an incentive to make it easier perhaps to repair or reuse their product and make sure that their packaging is recoverable through recycling programs. So that's a general concept of product stewardship. We have 4 EPR programs in Connecticut, which means these 4 programs were a result of laws. We have an electronics recycling program, paint stewardship, mercury thermostat, and mattresses. And not all of them are alike. And that's because the laws were written differently and because the product is different. However, they were all hard to manage materials. So let's start with paint. Paint became a stewardship program because more and more municipalities were trying to figure out how can they manage unused latex paint. There was so much need to dispose of this material, and perhaps the advisors might remember the days when they were told to put kitty litter in to dry it up before you put it in the trash. Well, that was a problem material. There was no good way of managing the material until the paint manufacturers worked with the department and passed a law for the paint stewardship program. All the paint manufacturers that make paint and then sell it at paint stores and hardware stores, which we then can buy, are done in a way that over here on the right, paint manufacturers have formed a stewardship organization called Paint Care. All the paint manufacturers pay into Paint Care. Excuse me. As well as to run a great program to collect materials, excuse me, to ensure that materials are recovered for recycling and/or best management practices in terms of recovery. So if we go back to the left-hand side, up in the left right corner, in the left top corner, it says promote only buy what you need. So Paint Care actually provides a calculator to help you understand how much paint do you need. You know, based on, you know, you have a 10 by 12 by 10 room, how much paint do you need for that surface area? Only buy what you need. So they're promoting waste reduction. And then when I do buy, there's an additional fee associated with the purchasing of paint, meaning it is visible. It's an external fee, something that we can see. And the money also goes to Paint Care to run the program. The way we do it in Connecticut is we pay 35 cents for a half a pint to up to a gallon. If you're buying 1 up to 2 gallons of paint, it's 75 cents. And it's $1.60 for if you're buying 2 gallons up to 5 gallons. And so all of that is creating the budget for Paint Care to develop this program. So I think I said earlier that paint manufacturers pay into it. And in this model, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. The money actually comes from the purchasing. So only people who buy paint will pay that fee that then manages the end of life of the product. But they also do education and outreach, and they develop collection programs. These collection programs are at paint stores, hardware stores, town transfer stations. They do one-day events, and they also allow for the recycling, and their swap shop of can also collect this paint so it can be reused first. All of this provides an incentive to producers to think about how they manufacture their products and design it so that it's easier to recycle. Paint Care does a great job of making sure that all used paint is reblended into new paint. And if it's an oil-based paint and it cannot be reblended, it is burned for energy because it's an oil-based paint. And then all the cans are recycled for metal. So it's a much more efficient system, and it's not, tax dollars are not paying for it. So the electronics program in Connecticut is a little bit different. It helps us understand that some of the concepts are still the same, but the details are slightly different. In this case, electronic manufacturers in the right-hand corner, They do pay into the system. There's no stewardship organization. In this case, the department runs this program, and that's because of the toxicity of the products, and electronics was one of the first laws that were passed. It is a stewardship organization in that manufacturers are responsible, but it really focuses on the recycling of the materials and doesn't really focus enough, I don't think, on reuse and repair. However, it is a great law because it allows for the recycling of electronics at no cost to municipalities. So the way it works, electronic manufacturers make a product. We then buy a product. TVs, computers, and printers are purchased. In this case, the fee is internal. Those products, you don't see an additional fee. They have internalized the expense of this program, making it just part of doing business. Manufacturers do pay annually to cover collection and recycling processing, but it's not an organization that does it. Mostly it tends to be reimbursement back to municipalities. Electronics are collected at the town transfer station. We also have an electronic recycler in the state called Take Two. Retailers can also collect them, and then there may also be one-day events. So could EPR work for gas cylinders? When manufacturers are part of the process of creating a solution, there's greater efficiency in collecting materials, such as gas cylinders, because they know gas cylinders, they make them. So there's also a greater cost effectiveness in coordinating at a state level and not locally. We can also offset costs associated with the recovery, recycling, and disposal because it's statewide and the manufacturers are doing it all as one program. It ensures more materials are recovered for recycling and in a safe manner. Provides incentives to redesign products or packaging. Question I have is, could it lead to easier and safer ways to devalve the canisters for recycling? Maybe. It provides incentives for new businesses or innovative ideas. The question I have is, could it create new businesses that offer refillable cylinders or perhaps an exchange program? Maybe. So why can't you refill these canisters like propane tanks? Again, 1 pound gas camping canisters are designed for single use. They have thinner walls, and repeated contraction and expansion can lead to metal fatigue, an eventual rupture of the canister, causing explosion. A valve on the single-use canister is also not designed for repeated use, and it has apparently no bleeder valve, which helps you understand when it's full. And so if you watch a DIY video, which you really shouldn't because you shouldn't be filling it, they just say, I'm listening and I think I can hear it getting full. And some other people weigh it, which I guess, but it's not quite safe and you can't really do it long term. I would not be encouraging anybody to do this. So refillable programs, they actually exist, though there's not many of them. We'll start with Flame King. Flame King has a canister and it's designed to be refilled. It's probably got thicker walls as a result, and of course, a valve that is meant to be used multiple times. You can see here from their promotional materials, it says the tank lasts for over 10 years. However, it requires you filling it yourself. It's still a DIY. You buy a full kit, and the kit includes the adapters so that you can refill it, and the stand. You do have to buy your own 20-pound propane tank, but there are ways in which you can refill your own. And again, you buy a refillable and then you refill it using their materials. There's also a type of refillable program, and this is by Little Camper. And Little Camper also has a canister that's specifically designed to be refilled. And instead of doing it yourself, it's you return it. You return the empty one, and you get a new one that's full from participating retailers. Sadly, this program is only in mostly California and not anywhere else. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be in Connecticut. So what's the difference between exchange versus refill? Exchange at the store, you purchase a refillable, boy, lots of typos today, apologies. A refillable canister, such as the little camper at a store, you bring in your empty, you get credit for your empty, and then when you buy the new one, you get that little credit off of the price. Or you refill at home. You purchase the refillable canister, plain Flame King, and then you have to purchase the additional equipment, and then you watch the training video. They had a lot of videos. Watch the training video and then learn how to refill it using all their equipment. So there are refillable programs. So how would product stewardship work for gas cylinders? To be honest, I have no idea. This was a little brainstorm with myself. This is the beauty of EPR programs. Usually the way they work is all the stakeholders get together and they talk about the challenges, the opportunities, and they make sure that a program can work for everybody. So you want to make sure that the program works for municipalities, that it's accessible to residents, that it's also not going to overburden retail stores. It's not going to provide unsafe conditions, etc. And so there's a lot of questions. There's not always a lot of answers, but it's really about trying to think about innovative ideas and trying to create solutions in a system that's going to work for everybody. So my little brainstorm, we buy camping canisters are manufactured. And then I added refillable canisters as an alternative. So we have two different types of canisters that are made by a manufacturer or producer. Both types are purchased at a sports store or camping store or a hardware store. And then how is the fee? I don't know. Should it be internal? Should it be external? That's a conversation with perhaps the manufacturers. Is it going to be the same for refillable versus the single use? I'm not sure. Great questions for the conversation. And then is there a stewardship organization? Is it one organization for all types of canisters, or is it just the single use? Good questions. Where would they be collected? At stores, town transfer stations, somewhere else? I know I have a question about how could our state parks participate in this model? So these are all great questions, and not everybody has the answers. And usually what happens is a law is passed that says manufacturers are required to develop a plan or a program to do such and such as collect the materials, ensure the materials are recycled or properly disposed at no cost to municipalities. Maybe they're required to do education and outreach. Maybe they're required to do transportation, whatever the little intricate details are. And from there, conversations begin between municipalities, regional waste authorities, manufacturers, could be collectors and haulers, the guys that transport the materials, as well as the stores. So what I've shared is just sort of the beginning concepts without necessarily having all the answers. And so with that, the question comes up, are there other ideas or questions? And let me just end with, we actually have proposed legislation this year. Raised House Bill number 5142 is an act concerning EPR for certain gas cylinders. So there's actually a proposed bill now in this short session that says we should be doing something about gas cylinders. I haven't read it. I don't know what type of gas cylinders. I'm assuming it includes 1 pounds. How are they proposing to do it? I don't know. But as you're thinking about how this might work or not work, a clue might be in testimony. Testimony is what people tell the legislators how they feel or what they think about the proposed law. This law is great because of, this law is awful because of this is going to be great for my business. This is going to be harmful to my business. I support this. Thank you so much. I don't support this. Do the right thing. Everybody's going to come up with different testimony, but you'll begin to understand how all the different stakeholders have a view and whether or not there can be some common ground found to create a solution, including with EPR. So I shared some really tough topics. I know that this is a very complex topic, but what I'm hoping is that you can have an understanding of generally how EPR works, whether or not gas cylinders is a good idea for EPR. And because gas cylinders are a problem, how would EPR work? And if not, is there another better solution to manage our gas cylinders in Connecticut? I hope that you consider different stakeholder perceptions and perspectives and read, perhaps, I did include testimony. A bill was put forth in 2021, and I did add some testimony from that in post 6 or post 7. I think it was post 7 about gas cylinders. And so the bonus really is to sort of read the testimony that's all fresh and new about this law. So would this work? Good question. I know often people, especially educators, have the answer. And in this case, I don't necessarily have the answer. I would love to hear your opinion and why you think it would work. I think that's it. And I've probably stunned everybody. I don't see any questions.